Hey guys, this is Joe748, and I'm here with our lovely co-host, SD1.
What's up?
And we're talking to LEC today. LEC has been a full-time professional card counter for a little over 3 years. He joined BJA back in 2018, so that's about 6 years ago. He went to a boot camp about a year later, and since he's joined multiple teams, he's played solo, he's played part-time, full-time, he's kind of done it all. How you doing, LEC?
I am good, man. It's great to be back on the show. Great to be here with you guys and looking forward to talking about everything.
For those who haven't heard LEC's previous podcast, he did one with BJA, and I also think he did one with Tens and Aces. But for those who haven't heard your background story, could you give us just a 2-minute summary of how you got to this place?
So I first joined in 2018. I trained like crazy from signing up until I went to my boot camp about 8 months later. I passed my test out kind of by the skin of my teeth. I got really, really nervous, kind of dropped the ball. Colin gave me like a half of a shoe a little later in the day, which was very nice of him, and I passed that one. From there, I started playing on a very small bankroll. I started with $3,000 and was playing $5 minimums, just red chipping, grinding for about 9 to 10 months of that. I had lots of swings up and down. I had kind of my biggest downswing betting 2 hands of 100 where I lost almost $10,000 and ended up break even after 400 hours of play. So after doing all the work, putting everything in, I was break even after 400 hours. And that was when I joined my first team. And I did end up catching up to EV not long after joining. I was on that team for a little over a year, and while I was still working full time. I was working at the post office and I was really miserable there. And one day after a trip, I came home and just said to my then girlfriend, now wife, what if I just didn't go back? I'm sick of this. I know I'm good at what I'm doing. And looking back, I think I kind of definitely jumped the gun in going full time. I should have prepared a little bit better, but I was determined to make it work, and I did. And that was 3 years ago. So I continued playing on that team for some time until everybody kind of went their separate ways. I've been on some other small teams, weekend bankrolls, and since then I've just continued plugging away and doing advantage play for my job and showing no signs of stopping.
Yeah, I remember reading some updates you had, and it felt like you can correct me if I'm wrong, it almost felt like you were severely questioning the move, and it had at least crossed your mind that you may quit and stop AP because it was brutal for you.
I don't think I ever really thought I would throw in the towel, but it's tough. Looking back now, I remember how awful I felt and how much I struggled and how hard I fought. And I'm looking back now, I'm like, oh, you were totally fine. Like you were just really like having a rough time and going through a losing streak. But there were certainly moments where it was simultaneously the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, yet the most rewarding.
That's awesome. Sorry, I didn't mean to like phrase it like it seemed like it was a big struggle at one portion in your career when you were updating some stuff. And I just recognized that. Not that you were going to give up, but that it was just that brutal, and it might have crossed your mind like, shit, this is terrible.
It was hard. There's definitely been more than one point that it's been really, really hard. But this year has been pretty good, pretty consistent. I felt fairly secure all year long. This is kind of the first year that it's felt like everything is working, even though last year I played more hours. I worked a lot harder, but this year just kind of, it's been a little different. I guess maybe I'm getting used to it finally.
So you're happy with the decision going full time, even though maybe a little bit premature, you're happy that you are where you are now.
100%. I would do it over just with a little bit more preparation. And if anything, that experience of doing that way, I've talked to several people who have gone full time. It's given me a perspective of being able to say, hey, you have to be super, super sure that this is what you want. You have to be seriously set up. And I've been able to cite the things I wish I'd done differently in my advice to other people who've gone full time. And I think that that's very helpful to those people who I talk to.
We get this question a lot about like, what's the bankroll requirement to go full time? Everybody wants to quit their corporate job, etc. Can you imagine if you had kids, a wife, people depending on you if you would have gone through what you went through with all that?
It would have been harder, but last year my wife did leave her job and she's been more of a homemaker. She works part-time now, just doing things on the side. So I did end up supporting my family with my wife and dog and everything with AP while it was going better. And then I subsequently hit a bit of a losing streak right after she quit.
Okay, so I have it wrong. That's my bad. I thought that you were not married at boot camp, so I'm wrong about that. I thought you got married after.
I dated the same girl for nearly a decade. We're married now, and we got married last fall. So
Okay.
I played full time while we were engaged for probably a year of that. We were dating for a year of that. She used to work. She no longer works full time.
So what does she think about the whole AP thing?
I mean, she gets it. She 100% gets it. She's very supportive. She understands what it is that I do. She has faith in it. She's seen the math work out. She knows that the bills are always paid. I've tried to get her into it more than once. She's not interested. I wish she would be.
So, but did it start off that way?
We were together when I first started learning. And so she kind of saw the gradual progression of me training and then going to boot camp and initial success followed by a bit of a fallout, joining the team and all of the things that I've done with Advantage Play since I started. So she's been there since the beginning. So maybe she would say differently, but as far as I can tell, I think she's had faith in it the entire time.
Kudos to her. That's not easy.
I want to go back to this 400-hour losing streak because you kind of brushed it off like, oh yeah, it's just normal. But that's really intense. Like, do you know if there's anything that contributed to or you could pinpoint to it intensifying the losing streak? Was it a spread issue or the game wasn't good enough?
A little bit of both. When I was newer, I had this feeling, especially when I was playing on the smaller bankroll and my hourly was lower. You know, I had to drive 45 minutes to go play, which for some people is then they're like, oh, that would be really nice if I only had to drive 45 minutes to go play. But I had this thing of like, well, I drove all the way up here. The cost of gas is this. I really need to play X amount of hours to make this trip worth doing. And so I was on a small bankroll way more willing than I should have been to play through negative counts. I was doing a play all the majority of the time when I should not have been. And then when COVID hit, I was still kind of grinding through red chip stakes, and my local didn't reopen table games until many, many months later. I had to drive down to different states with different games. These were 8-deck games with much poorer penetration, higher table minimums. I was basically effectively playing a tighter spread, wonging out a little more often, but playing tougher games with worse deck penetration, worse, the rounds per hour weren't so bad because they were limiting the number of people to a table, but it was kind of a conglomerate that attributed to the losing streak. And then I just kind of bottomed out at that 2x100. The other problem that happened there was I didn't resize. I kept losing, and I'm like, well, I had this mentality of like, well, I've played 300 hours. It has to stop eventually, and it didn't. Eventually, I was like, oh, wow, I should have resized 40 hours ago, but it's too late now. I had to live with that decision, but it's taught me a ton about the importance of risk of ruin and managing your bankroll properly, and I effectively refuse to allow it to happen anymore, and I try very hard to get people to understand how precious your bankroll is. It takes that happening to you only one time to understand how important bankroll management is.
Yeah, that makes sense. How big was your bankroll when you were grinding away at these negatives when maybe you shouldn't have been at that time?
I mean, it was like a 10K bankroll or slightly under. And, playing $10 games going 10 to 2x75, maybe 2x100. And it was just... The problem would be you'd be there at 3 a.m. to get the $5 and $10 tables. They have 2 tables open. They won't shuffle on request. So I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Sit here and not play? And now I know the answer is yes. You can't play those counts. You have to figure out a way to make it work for you. But at the time, I was like, well, I'm just going to play through it. In my head, I thought it can't be that bad. And it was.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to be in because if you went earlier in the day, it's like, sure, it's packed and then you maybe would be squashed into one seat. So you're like, what's worse, playing through the negatives when it's too expensive or playing at a really, really crowded, slow table, grinding away for 4 times as long?
Looking back now, the right answer would have been go later in the day, back count more, maybe deal with slightly more crowded conditions, but you're not playing the negatives at least. And there were certain days that were much better to go than others. Like Saturday afternoon was a great time to go. Between like noon and 3, they opened up the whole second pit and the place wasn't busy yet. I could have been, you could jump out the second the count went negative at all and just jump to the table next door.
Yeah, I get the impulse of wanting to play because you drove so far to get there, even if the game condition's not optimal. But like you said, the alternative is way worse.
One of my fondest memories of playing at my old local was right before, it was literally 2 days before COVID was shutting everything down. It was getting weird and it was kind of scary to be out. And I showed up on a Saturday, which I knew would be like, oh, there'd be tons of tables. And the place was a ghost town. There was like no one there. There was maybe like 5 people playing blackjack but they had like 12 tables open and they were all $5 minimums. And I was like, perfect. I did 5 to 2 hands of 150 all day long, just jumping out of every negative count. That was the one time I did it right.
Nice. After the 400-hour losing streak, you said you decided to join a team?
I got my game evaluated because I was concerned about the 400-hour losing streak, and I crushed it. I did really, really well. And at that point, that was when I joined the team with Nubs and some of the other guys that were on that team. That team lasted until last summer when things had just changed. People's goals were shifting. Some people were having family issues that they really couldn't dedicate the time to the team anymore. And so everybody kind of just moved on. But there was no animosity or anything. We all stay in touch. We all chat on a regular basis. It was just the team kind of ran its course. I think most teams do.
Yeah, that seems to happen. Which do you prefer, team or solo?
I like doing what I'm doing now, which is kind of a blend of both. I have a small group that I play with right now. I've had other small like weekend bankrolls that I've done. So what I like the most is you get 1 or 2 guys together. You say, yeah, we're going to pile all our stuff in the car. We're going to go out and play these casinos for the next 3 days. And we're going to chop on Monday. And whatever happens, happens. We're willing to play X and do Y. And we all trust each other. We've all worked together a bunch. And that's what I really like now. I think it's a lot of fun, is the weekend bankroll.
I like that too. That's really the only kind of team play I've done where it's just a weekend bankroll or a short-term combined bankroll with people I'm tight with. It's just fun.
Yeah, it's a good time. You go out, hopefully you win. Sometimes you lose. It is what it is. You chop up on Monday and you say, okay, till next time. And next time might be next weekend. It might be 2 months, 3 months away, but it's always a good time. And on the in-between, I play solo. I like what I'm doing now. It's the most fun I've had doing teams since I've done teams.
When you joined the team, what was the biggest difference in how everything looked playing on a team versus solo?
It was a little different. And I mean, the biggest difference overall being on the team was just the stakes I was playing. I went from betting 2 hands of 100 or 150 was my top bet to 2 hands of 300 overnight. So I was starting to get backed off. I was starting to have the experiences that everyone else was having. And so I was playing higher stakes. I was getting used to the swings, but it was also just kind of, I don't think it was too much of an adjustment with playing with the other guys. I really liked everybody that I played with. We all trusted each other. It was a good group.
Yeah, you kind of got fortunate with your team, from what I understand. You haven't really had a nightmare team scenario or any really bad. You guys were pretty solid from the beginning, right? I mean, it lasted, like you said, up until recently. So
yeah, I've certainly had some, not weekend bankrolls, but I've had some experiences with other APs that were not great, but nothing that ever soured me on the idea of working with people ever again. I'm a little more cautious now, but I never really had anybody outright steal from me or anything like that, which was good. I do feel very fortunate with the group that I landed with. I landed with a very good group of honest guys who all just wanted to play blackjack. And at the time, that was 100% what I needed.
I get this question a lot where people are in the small to medium bankroll size range and they're debating, should I join a team or should I keep grinding away solo? If they want to go the team route, what are some things that they should look out for?
I mean, the biggest thing, which everyone always says this, is if you're thinking about going the team route, you have to know these people that you're working with. You have to trust these people. And that's the biggest thing. It all completely comes down to trusting people. And I think A lot of people just are like, oh, I'm going to join a team. And it's not that simple. I always suggest to people, well, maybe figure out who these guys that you think you want to work with are. And then you take a weekend bankroll together and, make sure you like working together. What's going to happen inevitably is you're going to get shoved into a motel room in the middle of God knows where, and the room is disgusting. And if you don't like this person, it's going to be a really bad time. Like, you have to like these people and be used to hanging around with them and spending time with them. And then on top of that, trusting them, trusting their skills, trusting their reporting of their results. And if you can't do that, it's not going to work.
So taking this path of AP full-time, different scenarios, smaller teams, larger teams, solo, anything that living this life has taught you as a whole about not AP stuff?
I talked about this recently somewhere, but it's taught me how much to value the things that are really important to you in your life, which for me, that's my family. That's my wife, my dog, my other extended family at home. I basically do all of this for them so I can spend more time with them. It's taught me to just, how much I really care about those people and value those people. And it's kind of what I always come back to. AP has taught me how much to value the people I really care about. And a lot of the APs I work with are people I really care about as well. And good friends that I think, regardless of if we did Advantage play anymore or not, would continue to be my friends. And so it's taught me how to care about people in a different way.
Do you think you could get to that point at a corporate job the same way?
Maybe. I had people that I was friends with at my old job that I'm still kind of in touch with, but it's not the kind of friendship you develop because you nearly died in a snowstorm in the middle of nowhere in the Midwest with $80,000 in the car. And, it's just like those kinds of experiences bring you together in a different way.
Can you compare the worst parts of your old job to the worst parts of being a card counter?
Yeah, the worst parts of my old job were definitely, I had to work overnights, and that was really brutal. I never did well with that. Any person that's ever worked at the post office knows they micromanage you to death. It's never good. It's never fun. It's just never a good job, really. I don't know any postal worker that's ever enjoyed it. So I guess just the worst parts were, normal job things, dealing with management, dealing with a crappy schedule, and just dealing with the monotony of going in and doing something every day and not enjoying it. Certainly the worst parts of Advantage play are dealing with casino heat, back-offs, losing, and the travel can certainly get really hard. I'm not totally burnt out on travel, but there are certainly times that it's like the last thing I want to do is get in the car and go drive 2 or 3 hours to go play. But it's what I signed up for, and I do it. Once I'm there, the drive means nothing at that point. Like I'm ready to get down to work. And once I'm like 10 minutes out, I don't even remember the drive.
Speaking of geography and location, local shops, how much of your decision was to go full time was because you lost like that one local? Because I remember talking to you a while back and it seemed like you lived in an area where there wasn't a ton of options. How much of the decision was based on that?
I still could have continued working and continued playing some areas part-time, but I just would not have been getting in very many hours. And I still live in that area. It's hard to do the commute sometimes. I can fly out of my local airport, but it usually makes more sense to drive 2 hours to the next airport and then head out to fly somewhere. I've been backed off from almost every game that meets my criteria within 8 hours of my house at least once now. I've been trespassed from multiple. I've got some places I'm on my 5th back off and haven't been trespassed yet. So those places are ones that I reserve for like, oh, okay, I'll hit that place like once every 7 or 8 months or something and get backed off after an hour.
It's funny, I think later in a career, the travel's brutal. There's no question about it. There's a lot of times like you said, you don't want to go and do it. But even a place where there might be an opportunity that is close. I mean, I've even found myself, and we're talking about a 20-minute drive, and I'm like, oh, I do not want to do this. But like you said, as soon as you get there, like brain's on, time to go, time to work and activate. But getting there And I don't know if that's the casinos as a whole that just weigh down on you. I don't know.
Sometimes, yeah. And sometimes you're headed to a casino where the game available, like it's playable for your hourly goals, but it's not, you definitely wish you were playing like a high quality double deck, half a deck cutoff, but instead you're playing some game that's like, well, I should be getting hours in. This meets my criteria, but man, I wish I was playing something better than this.
What gave you the confidence to go full time after you had such a brutal start and losing streak?
I was kind of in the middle of a fairly good run. I'd caught back up to EV. I was doing well. I was learning new things about advantage play. And I just kind of had this culmination of I'd been taking every few weeks, I was taking Fridays off to go out and play again. And I was enjoying it more and more when I was out on the road. And I finally one day had just kind of had enough. And I came home and was like, I don't think I'm going to go back. And it was that. Like I said before, I should have planned better. I should have done more to get ready for that. I should have said, well, maybe in 2 months, that's going to be when I do it. And I always kept saying, oh, I really want to, maybe a few months from now. And then this one trip, I came back and the thought of walking back into the post office, I was like, I can't do it. I don't think I can do it.
You've gotten into other advantage plays, and we're not going to go into detail about those, but in terms of like rounding out being a more complete AP, we'll call it, what role do you think starting off as a card counter played in that? And would you consider it valuable, not valuable? How did it help? How did it not help?
The thing that starting out as a card counter helps you out a lot with is card counters are very, very diligent about knowing their advantage and knowing what game they're up against and knowing exactly how they're going to approach it down to 0.1% within their advantage. When you're a card counter, your advantage is so slim you can give up nothing. And so when a card counter learns other things, you approach everything from a card counter's mindset, which is very analytical, hardworking, and card counters are just sharper in that way. They're able to figure out their advantage down to 0.1%, and they want to capture everything they can. I know the downside of starting as a card counter, certainly as you expand into other advantage plays, is if you do a lot of card counting, you can kind of burn out your name. You can make it so you're not welcome at a lot of casinos. And when you look back, you're going to be like, man, that really sucks that I lost that casino because there's some super valuable thing here and I can't do anything with it now. That is a drawback of starting out as a card counter, but I don't consider that to make it not worth doing to start as a card counter either.
What about your ability to read heat?
It's interesting because there are so many card counters that read way too much into heat. And there are others who have a really, really incredible heat radar. And they know that it's like, oh, this phone call is absolutely nothing. But then suddenly there's lingering eyes from halfway across the casino. And they know like, oh, okay, that's for me. And so, one story I can tell is I'd been backed off at this casino once prior. And I had to show ID to get in. And this was my first time there post back off. And I'm just walking around the floor, doing some scouting, looking at what the main floor looks like for games. I'm not planning to play the high limit room. And almost immediately, I see a guy in a nice suit talking on his cell phone covertly, but I caught him. I was like, oh, that guy, I think that guy's looking at me. And so I was like, well, I'm going to run to the bathroom. And I go to the pit on the complete other side of the casino. And sure enough, he kind of saunters up, covertly, and he's making it look like he's doing his job in the pit. But I'm like, no, this guy's following me. And sure enough, when I came out of the bathroom, he was waiting for me to trespass me. So you develop a very interesting heat radar. Some things that look very normal to a regular casino goer, that's abnormal. But other people also read way too much into the one phone call, and they don't think to be like, oh, well, there's a second pit. Is someone in that pit on the phone at the same time? Because they could just be calling over to say something, oh, my brake relief is coming from over here to your side in 20 minutes, or whatever else they talk about. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that through a lot of experience or reps and dealing with the heat, you start to, just like anything, you start to really identify what real heat looks like. And nothing teaches you that better than card counting.
100%.
Do you ever go back to the places you're trespassed at?
I do not. Well, okay. That's half true. I've gone back to one place a couple of times, but my rule was I wouldn't play longer than an hour. And if I saw any member of the staff who I knew was there the day I got trespassed, I would leave immediately. And that only happened to me one time. And I have not gone back to that place in a year and a half, maybe 2 years now. I waited a little while after I got trespassed. I went back, I got an hour in, I left. I think the second time I went, I saw the guy that trespassed me from afar, and I just ended the session right there. I got up and just mid-shoe and just walked away. I was like, nope, this guy spoke to me very directly when he trespassed me. But besides that, no, I do not go back to places that have trespassed me.
Have you ever had the police involved in a trespass?
No, surprisingly, no.
I'm basically hinting at that one place that you used to live near that is super aggressive with their backoffs and trespasses.
Surprisingly, that was the place that I went back to because they did not involve the police when they trespassed me, which I was very surprised by. That story in and of itself, the trespassing, is kind of fun. I had played at a different casino in another state earlier that day, and I got backed off and was like, well, I'm going to drive to another state and go play. So I went to that state. I got down for a couple of hours and I was just kind of walking around the floor, getting ready to leave. And I walked past this kind of paddy wagon of security guys. There's like 7 of them. And one of them says, wait, that guy? I turned around and I was like, oh no, that's for me. And I kind of kept trying to make my way back to where I needed to go to get out. And they caught up to me and it was for me. And they were like, oh, they gave me the whole spiel. We need you to come with us. No, that's okay. I'm leaving anyway. And the head of security kind of caught up and, he had some piece of paper in his hand and he was letting me know that they were trespassing me. They wanted my ID. I wouldn't give it. And the interesting thing about the whole interaction was this shift manager, he'd been around the block. And so when security kept hassling me for ID and I kept saying no, at some point he finally was like, he's not going to give it to you. Quit asking him. We know who he is. And I just asked him, hey, did XYZ Casino send you something? And he kind of like looked around for a second. He's like, well, I got something from someone about you. And I was like, okay, well, that's, and that solidified it for me. I was like, okay, I know that casino flyered me because that was the only place I'd played in the last 3 weeks. And then they were telling me I needed to sign the trespass thing. I wouldn't sign it. And the head of security guy, again, was like, he's not going to sign it. Quit bugging him. Like, we just need to get him out. And they just escorted me out after a while. They did cash me out with no headaches or anything because they knew who I was. They had the flyer. And I actually at some point saw it on one of the tables, like an empty table, as I was being escorted to the cage. And I was like, oh, I'm so stupid. I'm wearing the same flannel. Like, I didn't even change my clothes. I didn't think that I needed to because I'm a state away. Again, a learning experience. Okay, you get a back off that could result in a flyer. Change your clothes, even if you're going a state away. You never know how far their reach is going to be.
I have a lot of respect for that head of security, like just the whole cut the crap attitude. Like, come on, guys, let's just get this done. Let's move on to our jobs. This kid just wants to go on and move to his job. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, he was very cool, and I'm very surprised that I had that experience because I know what those casinos are like.
Yeah, their reputation definitely precedes them.
If you're allowed to say, how did it work with your team structures on when to chop profits? Was it time-based or was it profit-based?
That's really going to depend on the team that you're on. I've been on teams that have done things time-based. I've been on teams that have done things kind of results-based. I've been on looser teams that are just like, yeah, every so often we'll split it up. When somebody's really losing like crazy and their pockets are feeling light, we'll settle up. Like that way nobody gets upset. I do like the time approach because, if you're going to settle every 3 months, that way, everybody gets their investment back and any winnings back every 3 months. The profit-based approach is certainly valid, but eventually you're going to run into some bankroll of death that takes 6, 7, 8 months to settle and everybody's miserable. No one wants to play because no one's getting their money. The loose setup, that takes a very specific group of people to do that, and I would really not suggest anyone do that. You just need to know the people that you're working with, and you need to know that like these people are really indifferent on whether or not you settle. And so I would not advise anyone do it that way.
Let's say I have a $10,000 bankroll and I'm trying to decide between solo or joining a team, what would you tell that person?
I would say, how big is the team? How many people are on this team? Do you like those people? Do you trust those people? What kind of stakes are you going to be playing? What's the payout structure like for the bankroll? How is playing on this team going to be different than playing on your own? There's so many what ifs. You need to weigh a lot of options. If you have the ability to grind a local game, if there's a $5 minimum nearby and the game is high quality and you can keep grinding, I might just say keep grinding for a little while. But if this team is really going to open up some doors for you, give you a lot of experience, it's a fair pay structure for everybody, you're going to make more money with them than you'd make solo, then by all means.
Of all the teams you've been on, did you notice that some people got more time than others?
100%. Well, one guy on my old team had a racial superpower. He was able to play way more hours just based on the fact that he was not a young white man. So he could just get down and blast away for hours and hours and hours. But every so often you do get some casino that's just asleep at the wheel and they let you do whatever. I've had places like that. Kind of towards the end of my time on the team, I found a casino that one guy had gone to and he was like, yeah, this place seems pretty tolerant. I don't know what they're doing, and I ended up going back. I went there every other week for, I don't know, a month and a half maybe. I ended up logging over 40 hours as a refusal, betting up to 2 hands of 600.
Was that a big place?
Very big place. It was so big that I think that's just why they could not keep track of everything that was going on. And the interesting thing that we kind of figured out was almost everyone on the team had gotten backed off there because they were playing alone in high limit. I was playing the 8 deck on the main floor, blasting away for hours on end. And it was like, they don't watch the 8 deck. Like, you can get down on the 8 deck. And I did. I played well over 40 hours at that place. And when they backed me off, I was a refusal. So I haven't been back, but I definitely could go back.
That's like the loud and often analogy of the single deck game is like the Lamborghini and the 8 deck game is the minivan. And he likes to go with the minivan tables because there's way less heat. Me and SD1 recently heard from a surveillance person about that. There's a double deck game that's really good at their property, but the 6 deck game, they don't even count down or do a skills check on. All their focus is on the double deck.
It was something with not being alone and exposed in the high limit. I just got to get down, and it was interesting. I kind of knew it was coming when I got backed off because some relief supervisor kind of pointed to me and was like, oh, the guy at that table's betting kind of crazy. And I was betting like 2 hands of 500 or something. And the incoming floor ran to the phone. And I was like, well, that's not good. But I'm like, well, I'm just going to play through the heat. And nothing happened. I played for 2 more hours. And then I came back the next night and played for 6 hours straight. And there was a hand review that came up. Some guy hit a hard 14 against a 6. The dealer blew past him. The dealer had a 14 and drew a 7 for 21 and beat us all. And the guy that tried to hit his hard 14 spoke up. And, I was in my head, I was like, man, just let it go, please. I don't want them to look at the tapes. And sure enough, they came back. So they paused everything. They said, yeah, we're going to call surveillance. And I was like, no, don't call surveillance, please. And sure enough, they came back and they're like, the guy, whoever the pit boss is, he's like, he signaled for a hit. The whole round's a push. And he points at me and he's like, I got to talk to you. And I was like, there it is. He pulled me away from the table and was like, gave me the spiel. Surveillance has identified you as an advantage player and we're not going to allow you to play anymore. And he's like, you have a player's card? No. He's like, you got an ID on you? Nope. And he turns around and there's 3 floor supervisors behind him. And he's like, does anyone have this guy's ID? And they all shook their heads no. And I was like, I'm just going to go. Bye. And I just disappeared.
See ya.
Yep. I disappeared into the night. They have no idea who I am.
Counter traps at a casino are a real thing. A real thing. T. Dane even speaks about it in, I think, both of his books, that they will set up a juicy game to get the counter to just flock to it, which is a nice approach, except when you think a step ahead and go saddle up at that 8 deck that they are not watching because they have a sweet game 2 tables away.
It was a fun time. I wish I could have played more on that game, but maybe it's time to pay them a visit again.
How did the teams that you were on handle tipping procedures?
The First team was tipping's not allowed, just kind of a blanket. It was kind of alluded to like if you tip, it comes out of your pocket. And that was how it worked. The group that I'm currently playing with, we have a policy in place that states you can tip 3% of your hourly EV per hour played for the session at the color up at the end of the session if you have a winning session. It's very specific. And so it's only for very specific circumstances that you think tipping will buy you more time. And I would venture to say 75% of the time, we don't even end up tipping. Like it's just there. That way, if somebody wants to make a judgment call, it can be done. And they will, when they submit their results at the end of the night, they just add in whatever they tipped upon the color up.
Yeah, you've like fended off all the guilt though at that point when you're coloring up and you're out. Like that should be the easiest part of the time, to walk away and be like, yeah, I'm definitely not tipping.
Yeah, I agree. But we have that caveat in there just in case.
Maybe it's engineered that way because specifically because who wants to tip at the very end?
Yeah, definitely.
It's stuff like that where it's not outright stealing, but I can see people falling into the trap of, oh, I need to tip them because I'm getting a lot of heat right now and get them off my back. And they think that they're doing that in the best interest of the team. And they might even be calculating, oh, this much I'm giving away is going to give me that many more hours. But without the team's consent, it is kind of like a cousin of time stealing in a way.
Yeah, I could definitely see why people would feel that way about tipping. But for the most part, the rule was on that initial group was tipping's not allowed unless it comes out of your pocket and you really think it's doing you some good. And I would venture to say that I don't think it really makes a difference at the end of the day. Like so many people have said, like nothing you tip will make them happy. So why tip at all?
Would you ever consider leading a team yourself?
Yeah, I think so. It requires a specific type of person and take somebody who has a lot of knowledge of the game and a lot of knowledge of how to work with people and good people skills and things like that, in addition to the general things that a manager would take care of, bankroll management stuff, helping to plan trips, things like that. There's a lot that goes into managing a team. It's certainly a lot of work. But if the right group presented itself, I could see myself leading one for sure.
Yeah, managing a team is doing all the things that nobody really wants to do. You just want to, you're an AP or a card counter. You just want to I just want to get my hours in. Let's go crush the casino. Who wants to handle the logistics? Do you have an end goal with your AP life? Like, is there an exit strategy? Is it an amount of money? Is it time in or metrics hit? Or are you just like, yeah, I'm just kind of going to go with the flow until I'm done?
For now, I don't have an exit strategy. My current target is $1 million in lifetime earnings. I haven't made that yet, but I will. I know I will. I've kind of decided that I think I'm going to be a lifer. I'll probably always do something with AP forever. I may not always play for a living, but I might find something else that I want to do eventually. And then from there, maybe I'll just play part-time, but I think I will do some form of advantage play forever.
I just kind of picture a gap for myself. And I can see this for both of you guys too, especially Joe. There's just a gap of the you're just not really doing anything, few years, whatever. Age takes place. You start looking like a curmudgeon old man. And then you're like, here we go, 2.0, let's go. Just hit them the same way. That I think that would be a lot of fun and you would drop off the radar completely for most places.
Yeah, definitely.
What is your typical act when you go to a casino?
So I try really hard to be the low maintenance player. I'm friendly. I'm just kind of myself, which is I'm kind of quiet. I'm just kind of me. When I'm losing, I get withdrawn. When I'm winning, I get a bit animated, but it's not really my style. It's too obvious that I'm trying to put on an act when I'm putting on an act. It doesn't come naturally to me, so I just do what comes naturally, which is just kind of being friendly, keeping the table neat, being low maintenance. I don't really complain about anything, even when I'm getting rocked. What I do is it's kind of just slap the money on the table, don't say anything, next round, play. Like I just kind of become withdrawn. That's kind of how I've always done it. At a couple different points, I feel like I've tried to do the act thing, and then the whole time I feel uncomfortable. And then that's taking away from my concentration on what I need to be doing, which is focusing on my game. SD1, I think you have a really great talk at the boot camp about how to lean into an act, which is that it helped me a lot at that time because I felt like I was getting backed off a lot, and I was struggling being who I am to get time in because I just fit the mold for the most part. But I realized like I'm trying too hard to be something I'm not, and I just need to be who I am at the table. And that's what has helped.
When I give that talk, I always also talk about the more chill people or introverted people, basically the polar opposite of myself. And I try to drive it home like, don't try to be me. That'll be really, really bad. I think you hit some really good points there. You just kind of turn yourself, who you are, up at the tables and try to act like a gambler that fits your personality. And that's going to look natural, and that's going to blend in, and that is going to be what they expect to see. Because not everybody at the tables is an extroverted idiot like me. So I'm glad that helped. And those are some really good points you brought up in terms of like your game suffering, which is number one, it can't suffer. And number two, don't try to pull off something you can't. But also for the people that are like quieter, more to themselves, laid back, more introverted, just know that you can have an act too. It just doesn't look like, I think, the stereotypical act that people talk about a lot.
Yeah, definitely. It's just unapologetically you. And they buy that.
Because it's real. It's natural. Yeah.
Being a full-time AP and spending a ton of hours in casinos all the time, what are some things that surprise you to this day when you're in this weird, wacky world of casinos?
The one weird thing I've started seeing that I get it because it's just popular on social media right now, but I was at a casino recently and there was a lady like filming herself playing, and she was like talking to the phone like the way that she's talking to her fans, and I was like, oh, this is super weird. Like, this is really, really something. It was just strange to see. I've seen a couple of the big famous people in the casino before. Like I saw Vegas Matt once in the casino. That was something. I was like, oh, hey, there's that guy. Besides that, I think it's just a lot of the usual weirdness of gamblers. You'd see and then there's some of the sad stuff you see too. That's always hard. To circle back a bit to why I do what I do, I don't spend a ton of time in the casino. I work like 15 hours a week. It's what works for me because it allows me to have time with my family. And, every few weeks, every 3 to 4, I take a bigger trip. And that's when I go out and I fly somewhere, and it's boots on the ground, 12, 14, 16. I'll put in 20-hour days on that trip, and then I come home and I decompress. And then I kind of go back to my 10 to 15 hours a week when I'm home. But that's what works for me. That's what works for my family. And that's what lets me do what I want to do. And there are plenty of other APs I know that just work relentlessly. And I'm like, why? Like, sure, you have a ton of money, but what else are you doing? The whole point for me is to make enough money to survive and thrive a bit and spend time with the people I care about.
Yeah, I think it's a personality type. I think everybody enjoys the freedom of it, but myself included, I didn't really take advantage of the freedom for a little bit just because of my personality. But I'm definitely where you are now. That's for sure.
If I lived in a different region where I had more games available to me, I think I probably would work a little bit more, but probably not much. I think I tell myself that to say like, oh, inevitably when I move, like I'm going to make way more money. And it's like, maybe. Like I'm just going to keep doing what I enjoy doing and being happy with it. And that's the whole point. That's why we do it.
Fun stories. Any you want to share?
So I have one story. I was playing in Vegas. I was on a trip with the team, and I was hitting Bellagio for 45 minutes every day. That was the deal. 45 minutes out the door, regardless of what happened. I wasn't willing to stay any longer than that. I had something come up where they figured out who I was at Aria like a couple days prior. And this was like my 4th day of the trip. I'm buying in at Bellagio. I think maybe I've played 3 hands. And this guy comes up to me and asks for my ID because he needs to check my age. And I at the time I was younger. I definitely looked like it was a valid age check. And I don't know why I did this. I just said, sure. But I showed it to him. I didn't let him take my ID. And he looks at it. He reads the name LEC. And then I notice out of the corner of my eye, this lady is on the phone in the middle of the podium and she nods when he says my name out loud. And at that point, I realize it's not an age check. Like, he just verified who I was. And then he turns back and is like, you can't play here. You know you can't play here. We've told you you can't play here. And I was like, okay, sorry. Then I'm like coloring up and he's like, yeah, you're not allowed to play at MGM properties. And I was like, sorry. I thought that was just that other casino. And he's like, no, that's all of them. And I said, oh, okay. And, just a stupid mistake on my part. I should have just said no. And I don't even know why I did it. It's like, in that moment, I was like, oh, this guy seems sincere. I'm going to show him my ID, I guess. And, just a big lesson there on making sure to not show ID when they ask. Like, just like drugs, just say no.
Have you hit him again since?
Definitely.
Nice.
Is that your standard approach to Vegas? Really quick hits?
Yeah, definitely. The longest session I played was actually, told the story on the forum, but this is actually a good story. So my wife and I got married last year and we eloped. We went to Vegas. And so we did a week in Vegas. And the night we got married, I wanted to go to El Cortez while she still had her dress on and I was still in my suit. And I wanted to see how long I could get down on the single deck with the wedding getup, but her shoes were giving her a blister, but we were right next to one of the downtown Boyd properties that has playable double deck, and we were literally right next to the door. And her feet are bugging her, and I was like, well, let's just go in here, let's see what they have. And so we go in, and we found a $15 double deck game that was, the penetration was fine, and so we sat, and she's never played before, mind you, and this is a pitch game. So the whole time I'm helping her handle her cards. And we took it easy in the beginning, but pretty quickly we were spreading from red to heavy green, like 1 to 2 spots, sitting out hands and just blatantly throwing it in their face. And we played for a couple of hours, just unbothered. Like, everybody came up. Some other pit boss would come up and I'm like, this is it. This has to be it. Congratulations, guys. This is so exciting. And a couple people were like, you're dressed way too nice to be in this casino. Like, I don't know why you guys are even here. Like, because everybody that gets married, they go off to the Strip or something. And we're just grinding double deck in downtown. We didn't get backed off. We just, at some point she was kind of like, I think I'm ready to go. And then she checked the time and she was like, we've been here for over 2 hours. And I was like, wow, that's really good for Vegas. Like, so we packed it up, we left, and she won, I lost, and I think we maybe won like $100 or $200 for the session, but it was just a fun time. And then we left, and she was like, maybe I would play that again sometime. And I was like, perfect, next time.
My wife wants nothing to do with AP, and I actually like that.
Yeah, she, since then, it still is kind of like, she's not really interested, but maybe one day I'll convince her.
Well, LEC, thank you for sharing your experience playing on teams, being solo, being a full-time card counter in AP, and thanks for giving the tip that if you want to last at the El Cortez, you just need to bring your marriage certificate and maybe a slot ticket with some 10 cents on it to the table. And if you guys are BJA members, stay tuned. We're going to shortly release a members-only podcast featuring LEC, and we're going to go into some other table game exploits that he's been a part of and some more sensitive topics that we have for members only. If you want to learn more about card counting, go to the Blackjack Apprenticeship YouTube channel or go to blackjackapprenticeship.com.